7th, the time is 7 p.m. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, Rudy.
Commissioner Barker.
Here.
Commissioner Begeman.
Here.
Commissioner Cantwell.
Here.
Chairman Hanchey.
Here.
Commissioner Cross.
Here.
Commissioner Gage.
Here.
All present. We have a quorum, Mr. Chairman.
All right. At this time, can I get a motion for consideration of the approval of the agenda and approval of the minutes?
Mr. Chair,
Robin?
I move that the Planning and Zoning Commission accept the agenda as presented and approve the minutes from the August 23rd, 2022 regular meeting.
Second.
I have a motion. I have a second. Rudy, can I get a roll call?
Commissioner Gage.
Yes.
Commissioner Barker.
Yes.
Commissioner Begeman.
Yes.
Commissioner Cantwell.
Yes.
Chairman Hanchey.
Yes.
Commissioner Cross.
Yes.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Tonight we have the following items on the public hearing. 22-629 presentation, discussion, public hearing, and consideration of case P2198 Sd, a proposed preliminary plat for 106 lot residential townhouse subdivision of 7.7 acres, tentatively known as Old West Highway Village, located south of Old West Highway between Royal Palm Road and Tomahawk Road. Nick?
Good evening, Planning and Zoning Commission. Good to see you all again tonight. As a quick explanation, as I know that some of the commissioners have commented that they've seen this item before, this was part of a rezoning case that was approved by the City Council in February of 2021. Now, generally speaking, a lot of developers prefer to run both the preliminary plat of a subdivision and the rezoning entitlements at the same time. Since the preliminary plat involves a higher level of engineering and grading designs, it is considered doing it at risk because that's a level of detail that isn't necessarily required for a rezoning, but it is required for the subdivision itself. So some developers, in the interest of time, will run them together. However, those that may be more risk averse or wish to kind of spread the process out a little bit further can, and in this case have, run the rezoning and the preliminary plat separately. So in this case, this is the actual creation of the subdivision proposed to be the Old West Highway Village. So again, this property is zoned RM1 PD. The initial Planning and Zoning Commission hearing was in January 2021. It was then proceeded to the City Council for a vote on February 2nd of 2021. And in the meantime, the developer has been working out some of the engineering. There was more specific issues within their own plans themselves that they are here if you would like to ask them questions about how it came to take this long. But it has come to this point where they have proposed a preliminary plat that would actually create the subdivision. In this case, they would move forward, work on the final plat, and then upon final plat approval, they would be able to submit for actual construction documents. Here's a zoning map for a little bit greater context just within the area. So it is between Royal Palm Road and Tomahawk Road, just south of Old West Highway. This is the approved rezoning site plan from the rezoning case PZ 120. Now, the preliminary plat itself has changed a little bit since then, as is shown here. Of particular note, the units that were along the south side have been readjusted. A road has now acted as a buffer between the south property line and that row of units. And now with that, there have been several other changes. I will make mention that one of the City Council conditions of approval was that the west and south edge units, since this is proposed to be both 2- and 3-story units, the condition of approval number 13 stipulated that there would be no 3-story units along the west and south edges. That was mainly particularly due to privacy concerns, as well as any of the other height concerns that neighbors raised at that time. And it is noted on the preliminary plat, which would bind it, that all of the units on the west and south edges are limited to 2 stories. So that is in compliance with condition of approval number 13. With that, there were other conditions of approval that stipulated certain improvements would be made on the site plan compared to what we saw at that time. Some of that includes the addition of amenity features. So in this case, the applicant has shown things like pickleball court, tot lots, cabanas, and barbecue spots throughout the site. So they are in compliance with that condition of approval, number 10, as well as other conditions of approval that stipulated things like a connection to the sidewalk that is coming in as part of a grant on Old West Highway. So the city wanted this kind of pedestrian connection as we're getting new fancy sidewalks, and the applicant has worked with, in this case, the engineering group responsible for designing those sidewalks, and we made sure that all these items that were stipulated in the condition of approval for ordinance 1501, that they have been addressed, in so much as they are at this point in the plating process. So with these things in mind, and in comparison and consideration to the approved plans of PZ 120 and ordinance 1501, planning staff recommends the approval of P2198 Sd, which is the creation of the approval of the preliminary plat, which starts the actual subdivision process to turn these 2 lots into 106 lots pursuant to the development plans that have previously been approved. And all of this subject to the conditions of approval found within the staff report. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer. The applicant is also here if you have specific questions that they may answer.
You've included 6 additional conditions, Nick?
So yes.
And those are in addition to the conditions that were in the rezoning plot?
Yes, so these conditions of approval, they are standard conditions. They are specific to the preliminary plat itself, and they have to do specifically with the engineering of the site, as well as when you create a subdivision itself, it has to do with things like HOA and maintenance and items that are specific to platting. But they are, in addition to all of the former rezoning conditions of approval are still binding and are still part of this process, as noted in, I believe, condition of approval number 1.
Right. On condition number 4, the last sentence says, should the homeowner association ever dissolve or become defunct, the maintenance of such areas shall be the responsibility of the abutting lot, tract, or parcel owner. Who is that? Could that be the existing homeowners out there now?
No, it would be specific within the interior community. However, I will say, because this clause specifically is kind of a fail-safe, we have stipulated in terms of us working and our engineers working with applicants that the homeowners association would never be dissolved, and that would be a condition of approval on the plats themselves. However, some homeowners associations have at times just gone bankrupt, they've just disappeared. Worst case scenario, for some reason, even though it's within the laws itself that the homeowners association will be responsible for the maintenance of these tracks and of the retention basins, worst case scenario, for some reason they just disappear. This condition specifically would place the obligation of the landscaping immediately, or the retention basin immediately in front of a interior unit on that adjacent property owner.
Okay, so
It would not be a exterior owner of someone, like, I understand what you mean of having, you have those properties just to the south within the Royal Palm subdivision, and they abut a retention basin, but they would not be responsible for that cross property line. The kind of responsibility would be maintained in the interior. However, again, both staff and all of our engineers, the stipulations within the plat itself are that the homeowners association should never be dissolved. It is just in case of a worst case scenario where out of our hands, something happens and they just are gone.
okay, thanks.
Follow up with that. What about like the ones that aren't, like where that road goes across the back and then you like have a common area across from that? Who would take that over in that case?
Where the pickleball,
Where the
Yeah.
pickleball,
Right.
or the other play lot on the other end.
because
You
item 4 does not specifically, what
Assign,
property
yeah.
abuts to that. That's the
Right.
existing homeowners on the south side of this subdivision.
Right.
So in these situations, again, while the city's goal is to always have this homeowners association maintained, in that case, there have been incidences where, as a group, the owners adjacent to it, or more accurately to say, because that services the entire community could be assessed the fees of maintenance by the city. That's the kind of a legal situation that we would not like to get into. However, in those incidences at which an entire subdivision has abandoned their maintenance responsibilities, there are legal mechanisms to assess them at large, as opposed to just one. Not any one single homeowner would be obliged to take care of the pickleball court, for instance.
Right. And Joel, the city would be covered with this?
Oh, not necessarily. We've had that happen, actually,
Yeah.
where a subdivision decided, we don't want to pay for maintenance anymore. So then all the residents that were around this park area were very upset because they would see the foliage. And at one point, I think we did do it, but then it was a yearly thing. So then we had to turn back to the homeowners, and at one point, on one subdivision, we actually did turn, there was language in the, arguable language in the, I think it was on the plat, where we went to each individual person and said, hey, you have to pay for this. So, perhaps we need stronger language on that. We could hear from the developer if they're going to get up to talk about it, if you call them up. But it could be a recommendation that you add language that makes it a bit stronger.
Yeah, I think we have to protect the city, add a stronger language in there per legal, consult with legal counsel. And I'm sure there's something that the builder could put in with their CC&Rs that all the home buyers buy off on as well. Well, these are gonna be rentals, aren't they?
No.
They are townhomes, so they are for ownership,
Okay, yeah,
for purchase.
yeah. So yeah, then if it gets put into CC&Rs when they buy, they have to sign off on CC&Rs as well. So if we get it to where it's in here and then they incorporate in their CC&Rs, then I think that would further protect the city.
At least language in there that would state something to the effect of, it's all residents within that community would be ultimately responsible for any and all maintenance, regardless of whether there's a homeowners association in place.
And I'm just thinking to save the city in the future, worst case scenario.
Right.
And that'd be something we could put in for all future stuff.
Vice Chair, so in CC&R language, it's really common that there is a clause of some sort within the document that says that CC&Rs cannot dissolve.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very common language. We will review the CC&Rs. We'll work with the development team to make sure that that language is there. So this Armageddon type of scenario,
Right.
Won't be transferred for city responsibility.
Right. Thank you. Anyone else have any questions for Nick?
All right, yeah.
Do the developers want to speak at this time?
Mr. Vice Chair, members of the commission, my name is Greg Loper, representing Frank Delarmy and a host of other folks who have been working on this project. Before I get too far, I want to thank Nick and I want to thank Rudy and the rest of the staff here at the city because it's been a long project. When I appeared before the commission a year and a half ago on the zoning, we had just gone through the pandemic, and I remember my comment was, wow, what a year. And at that point, we'd been in this project, I think, over 2 years. Well, a year and a half later, what a year and a half it's been. The pandemic really didn't subside like we thought it would. It went on in a different phase, and we've seen changes in a lot of different things, including the housing market itself. not just with interest rates, but the type of housing that people want, the type of amenities. That's ever changing. But with that said, I wanted to address the issue about the potential dissolving of the HOA. So prior to the big recession in 2008, 9 and on, nobody had ever really heard of that. But a lot of those HOAs were underfunded. They didn't have the reserve funds. They didn't have the mechanisms in place. So when the recession hit, the management companies and those HOA bodies no longer had the funds. When homes were going through bankruptcy and just people couldn't afford to pay the HOA fees, they couldn't do it. They couldn't do the maintenance. They couldn't take care of things. And so what's happened since then is you'll see a strengthening in the HOA language, primarily through CC&Rs, to keep that from happening. The issue you brought up tonight is not unique to Apache Junction. It's happened throughout the state and frankly throughout the U.S. HOAs we're primarily a Western U.S. thing. They're throughout the U.S. and I'm sure throughout the world. The preliminary plat itself doesn't establish the individual ownership. It's still one owner. There's not going to be 106 lots if the preliminary plat's approved. There won't be the tracks. This is part of the vehicle to ultimately get us. It'll be the final plat, and as was indicated, those CC&Rs will come before staff and presumably you, as part of the review and approval process for the final plat, be an opportunity to review those. So I don't want to say that there's nothing to fear because, again, go back to late 2019, who would have known? But we are trying to address that because it's in the developer's interest to have good CC&R set up so those things are maintained in perpetuity. There's not just a HOA lien, but there's the ability for others to come in and do things without it having to become the city's responsibility where possible. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. I got a long-winded presentation I could go through if you'd like, but I imagine we'd all like to get home.
That works for me. I mean, as long as we're addressing that
And definitely
language.
noted.
Yeah. Yeah, my concern is just that it gets addressed before the final approvals go through.
Chair, I have a question.
Commissioner Cross?
So regarding your pickleball court and its location, is that, how do the neighbors to the south and west feel about that? Will there be a court that's used into the night, especially in the summer when it's hot? Will there be lights intrusion? Also the kiddie park or the tot lot playground. My old residence in Mesa ended up having a tutor time children's learning center, tutor time, place right next door. And, thank God they're not open on Saturdays and Sundays because, man, from about 8 o'clock, and it's not necessarily the teacher or the kids so much, but sometimes them teachers just whining and hammering and nammering on them kids. It's just nerve-wracking.
Understood. Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Cross, part of the reason why this has taken a while to come before you is we've been working to try to figure out, number one, the best amenity package, and also to, how the site's going to work. The site flows to the south and to the west, primarily to the south. And we were trying to work, hoping that we could get it to flow a different direction. Primarily, there's the little wash, if you will, along the east. It doesn't work that way. The sewer, you're bucking a lot of different things. So the location of the tot lot and really the pickleball court was primarily because where are the best places to put retention areas and to put open space? I couldn't guarantee that they were going to be proposed absolutely for this case. Given our current marketing, which is more towards kind of starter families, if you will, I don't know that a pickleball pickleball would be an exact amenity. We were just trying to show indicative of it. But with that said, and if you recall, there were some neighbors that showed up that wanted to know about what we were doing with this anyway. If we were to do something in that corner or with the tot lot at the southeast corner, my recommendation to my client and would be, and probably staff would carry this, that it have limitations on hours, that it not be lighted, or if it is lighted, it's shielded in such a way. Because in the winter, you know, sun doesn't get very bright till 8 a.m. and 5 o'clock. Sometimes it can be pretty dark. But I think we're going to be working through this as we go through the improvement plan and final plat process to better identify what the market's going to be, because that's ever changing. And then again, what those amenities will be that reflect that and where they'll be. And then if they are in this location, how do we best do it so that we don't upset the neighbors as best we can?
Very good. Thank you.
Commissioner Barker?
Whoever she is down
Yeah, Commissioner Barker.
there.
I had to think of your last.
Parking, I realize this is just kind of a
Yep.
hazy proposal at this point, but how many parking spots, Rudy, would?
29.
29?
It says 29 in the one I
Oh, okay.
read.
I obviously skipped over that part.
It's small print.
Okay.
And also keep in mind, each unit has a 2-car garage.
Oh, okay, that was my question. Thank you.
Yeah,
Took the words right out of my mouth.
going back again to the pandemic, one of the things that we found that happened was there was a significant transition to work from home. You had to. And while that decreased parking overall, it meant that the garage would just had a car sitting in it 24/7. So again, number one of those dynamics has changed that we look at.
It just seems to me that your visitor parking or extra parking, that maybe you would want to scatter it a little more around the area because you have it predominantly on the south side.
Again, that correct because of the way the site works.
Right, and
but-
I see how you had to do that.
And this doesn't indicate it really well, but if you look between each, I'll call it a pod or a block of units,
Okay.
there are walkways.
Uh-huh.
Those would be, so people could access each of the unit from anywhere within it. There are the roads, you know, obviously you don't want people walking on roads, but that's a potential too. And also we found during the pandemic for things like UPS drop-off, FedEx, Porch Pirates, that a lot of people just park in front of a unit for a little bit of time, drop stuff off and go. And I know like in my neighborhood, that's what people do in family visits. You stop, kids get out, luggage gets out, then the car goes parks in a guest parking area.
Thank you.
Rudy, when are we looking towards that ordinance for more parking?
What are we doing as far as looking at updating the ordinance?
Yeah.
We did send out an RFP. I don't know if I've mentioned this or not, for a consultant to do a zoning ordinance update for us. We got one applicant and they were no good.
Oh,
So we either have to go out again and, I don't know, sweeten up the pot a little bit or something. I'm not sure what we're gonna do. It's an ongoing internal discussion. But unfortunately, what we thought we would already be started on is not yet started on. And there might be other solutions. Go after the things that need done the most, maybe do those in-house and
Yeah.
at least try to chip away at it that way. But unfortunately, our RFP was not successful.
'Cause I don't want to hold
Yeah.
these guys accountable for something we haven't written yet.
Sure.
But it really does need to get addressed because, you know, there's 20, and I know some of these are gonna have to be handicap accessible by the rules. So now you're cutting into that, and that, to me, that's just not enough parking for guests and stuff. But you're complying with the rules we have now, and I understand that. So, you know, I wanna get the rules updated as soon as we can so that we can get this better.
Duly noted, Mr.
All right,
Chairman.
thank you.
Understood, thank you.
And if it's possible, try and work a few more spots in here.
Yeah.
Your residents in the long term will really appreciate that.
I could tell you that, and I've worked on a number of projects like this, and multifamily ones and single large lot ones, that's always an issue.
Yeah.
When you know, a larger lot, obviously have driveways and wider streets and
Yeah.
stuff, but for projects like this, that's always an issue. And I definitely feel for the city, because the consulting firms have definitely taken a hit over the last little while. But as I go out there, I find the trend is actually the other direction, where they're trying to reduce required parking. But again, those are in areas that also have alternative methods, which, you know, Apache Junction, that'll be coming, but it's gonna be a while.
Right.
Definitely understood.
Commissioner Barker?
Are you looking at putting a turn lane into your entrance off of Old West?
Deceleration lane.
Yeah.
Yeah. Vice Chair, Commissioner Barker, if you look at that main entrance, you kind of see a line
The
that,
curved one?
yeah, kind of comes off and goes in. That would be a turn lane.
Okay, I kind of hoped that's what it was, but I wasn't sure. This is such a compressed map.
It's hard.
Really difficult to tell what's what.
You can only imagine when you have a triangular or anything that's other than a rectangle, just trying to get the design on it, because half of this exhibit is north and east, and it's nothing. You know, it's the other side of the road. I'd point out too, it's off the screen just a bit, but at the northwest corner, there's a right turn lane exit only, which would have, you know, kind of a pork chop design, so it can't show up. But that's a secondary access, emergency access to the development.
Okay.
I remember that from the hearing.
Right here, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, you're welcome.
You got, anybody else have any questions? All right.
All right. Thank you. If
Thank
you
you.
need anything else, just yell at me. I'll come.
Mr. Chairman, does Mr. Cantwell have any
Oh,
questions?
sorry. Yeah, Mr. Cantwell. I figured he was.
Commissioner
spoke up too.
Cantwell?
Oh, no, I'm still awake. No, nothing in particular. The parking is always an issue. You know, the rule of thumb I've been trying to go by is, you know, in a place like this where most of the parking is in garages, I'd like to have one guest parking spot for every 2 units. If you get, you know, some of ours have, you know, maybe half of their total parking in garages, and then I want extra parking at about 1 for 4. But I think this one is going to have enough, but it's always going to be an issue. And you know, everything that we've been looking at is going to have parking issues. Other than that, no, I'm fine. I think this is a big improvement over the first one.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
All right. Since this is a public hearing, I'm going to ask if anybody from the public would now like to speak. Again, asking if anybody from the public would like to speak. Seeing none, I'm going to close out the public. Would we like to say anything before? Would anybody like to recommend a motion?
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Barker.
I move that the Planning and Zoning Commission recommend to the Apache Junction City Council the approval of preliminary plat case P2198 Sd requested by Galileo
Yep.
Capital Partners, represented by Greg Loper, applicant, for a 106-lot residential subdivision tentatively to be named Old West Highway Village, located south of Old West Highway between South Royal Palm Road and South Tomahawk Road, subject to the conditions that are in the staff report of September 27, 2022. Did you want to add the condition on 4?
The what?
Did you want to add stronger language to condition 4 or not?
No, because we can make sure it's in the final one.
Okay, so
And if
that's
it is, and if staff doesn't put it in, then we'll make it at that
Okay.
time.
Mr. Chairman, just a point of clarification, final plats do not come to you.
Oh, they don't?
Yeah.
No, sir.
They
Oh,
don't.
I'm sorry. Then yes, we do.
Adding to condition number 4, stronger language to ensure that it is clear who is responsible for maintenance if the HOA should disappear.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Rudy, I have a motion with a second. Can I get a roll call?
Commissioner Cross,
Yes.
Commissioner Gage,
Yes.
Commissioner Barker.
Yes.
Commissioner Begeman. Yes. Commissioner Cantwell,
Yes,
Chairman Hanchey.
Yes.
So move, Mr. Chairman. This will go to City Council for a work session, October,
The 17th.
and then November 1st for public hearing. Okay. With your recommendation of approval and conditions as modified.
Thank you, Rudy. We have no old business,
No, sir.
no new business.
No, sir.
Information and reports. I have none at this time. Director's report, Rudy?
Yes, sir. We, this evening, put a couple of, a little packet on your desks there, and at the last P and Z meeting, I don't know if it was during or after the P and Z meeting, Commissioner Cross asked if we would give the commission an update, as I understood it, on the multifamily approvals that have occurred within the last couple of years. So I prepared a little two-page synopsis of the projects that have come to the commission for their action within the last couple of years, and I also prepared a graphic. It's all a little blurry, but I think you kind of get the idea. Just very quickly, of course, Old West Highway, approved back in 2001, the rezoning and the pre-plan, and we just discussed their pre-plat. So Villas on Superstition, that was approved back in May of 2020, 56-unit rental apartment units. The project is under construction. Yes, construction has taken a long time for various reasons that the developer has stated. Can't get materials, can't get workers, a lot of rain, et cetera, et cetera. I believe they now are working on all of the buildings, or at least all of the apartments. And they, they're moving along slowly, but they are moving along. Superstition Ridge, that was a project that was recommended for denial back in 2020. Those are the folks who wanted to do the 4-story apartments near the roundabout. After P&Z, they basically withdrew their application. Ironwood Station Townhomes, 96 2-story ownership units at the southeast corner of Ironwood and Superstition, also under construction, also have had materials delays and things like that, but obviously moving a lot of dirt out there, getting their infrastructure in the ground, moving forward. Galen's Garden, that was the little apartment complex on North Valley Drive. They had 6 apartments. They needed a PD amendment to add more units. Basically, it had to do with sewer. It had to do with a couple of other site constraints that were evident on the property at the time. They did get their approval, and most recently, they do have their construction documents in for review, so they're moving along as well. The residences at Apache Trail approved last October, 201 attached and detached single-story rentals. This project is under a new ownership. Of course, we always knew that they had a flood zone, FEMA flood zone issue to contend with. They're working through some of those issues, a couple of minor design issues as well. But they are also moving forward. Sydney, do you know if they've actually submitted construction plans or? Okay, so still working on the engineering and the site work. The Havenly, this was the project at the southwest corner of Superstition and Royal Palm, 166 single-family style, 1-story rental units. Those developers will come back to you here in the very near future, proposing kind of a minor plat amendment or plan amendment for the project that was approved by council and commission, and they're also looking at doing another project right next door to the west. So they're going to kind of, not exactly combine the two, but there's some issues that affect both properties. Goldfield Estates, this was one of Nick's projects approved by council back in May. This was the project down at Goldfield and US 60. You may recall part of the property had an old commercial plan development on it that never happened. So there was a PD amendment for that part of the property. There was an additional 7.5 acres that the developer acquired. So that part of the property required a rezoning, but both pieces combined worked together to present a preliminary plat for a 209-unit townhome. These are ownership units, townhome subdivision. And we currently are, they are currently processing their final plat. It is under review for the 209 townhome development. The Enclave, recently approved just a week ago by City Council. This was the project at Rennick in Virginia, 124 two-story rental apartments, a little bit of south end of the property for the Arnold's storage yard. And that was approved, and we are waiting for their construction plans. Hamptons East, northeast corner of Meridian and Southern, they got their CUP approved by you back in 2020, proposing 195, mostly attached, but some detached apartment rentals, and they are also currently under construction. And lastly, once again, another very recent approval back in August, another development very similar to Villas on Superstition, 56 units, rental apartments at San Marcos and Superstition, once again recently approved, and we are waiting for their construction plans. I also included a graphic which, you know, I basically, number one's over here, number two, which kind of follows the summary. Unfortunately, not a very good graphic, but it shows you where all the various projects are located. And that's my presentation, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Rudy.
Now, we did not include commercial things that you've recommended for. We did not include some of the city-initiated rezonings for developments that already existed. You know, there's a few other projects that we did not put on this list. Our concentration here was on the multifamily. Altogether, these projects represent 1,216 total multifamily units. Out of those, 411 are townhomes and 805 are rental apartments. So 411 units that will be individually owned and 805 units that will be rental apartments of, you know, 1, 2, 3 bedroom, various sizes.
So that should help our
Out of
community.
curiosity, how many rental units do we have currently in town?
What?
He was asking how many rental units do we currently have in town?
Not many. We got the crossings. We have the other low-income housing tax credit project behind.
No, I think he's asking total rentals throughout the community, existing rentals.
Existing rentals, that number I don't have, but they're not that many.
No.
We have several.
Like, you know, you got the big apartment complexes up there by Walmart and stuff, so.
Yeah, probably the bigger ones used to be called Indian Wells. Now it's called Sonoma Village. That's a low-income housing tax credit project. The crossings over there off of Phelps, that is a low-income housing tax credit project. The development that was approved up on Teepee, just west of Idaho, 56 units, I think that's also an LIHTC project. Not a whole lot of market rate apartments. Of course, we have the Section 8 apartments at Broadway and Tomahawk. But as far as market rate apartments, there's in the Palm Springs neighborhood along Winchester, there's some fourplexes in there, older fourplexes. Also at the northwest corner area of Idaho and Southern, there's those fourplexes in there just west of the little industrial area, the light industrial area. Apartment developments scattered here and there. Of course, there's a couple of condo developments, Quail Creek, Indian Summer, Mountain Vista Villas over there off of Delaware. There's Acoma Village up on North Meridian, just south of Lost Dutchman. Those are also condos. But as far as rental apartments, not a whole lot of them out there.
Yeah. So this should give a good,
What about Royal Palm?
Yeah.
What about Royal Palm, he says?
Royal Palm, yeah, those are the ones along Winchester, between Winchester and Royal Palm, those fourplexes there on the east side of Winchester. And
yeah.
Yeah, right across from the college.
yeah, well, to the
That's a
south
big
of the college.
apartment complex.
Across from the St. George's Church, those fourplexes to the
Oh.
on the other side of Winchester. Other developments on Royal Palm? Yes, okay, up on, just south of Broadway, just west of Royal Palm, there's some fourplexes in there too, or some small multifamily developments in there as well. Yes.
Does that answer your questions, Commissioner Cantwell?
Adequately, yes.
Okay.
I was just kind of curious because I didn't think we had a whole lot of them, and it sounds like we're adding quite a few more.
Yeah. So this should give a good boost to the rental market in Apache Junction,
Yep.
once we get these all online. Plus quite a bit of single-family, smaller homes.
I'd like to see some more single-family, smaller homes.
Plus all the multifamily and single-family we're gonna get down in the master plan community area.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying up here in the proper, AJ.
Yeah,
The
Yeah.
proper. AJ proper.
That's
AJ
right.
property.
I'm coining that term,
I like it.
AJ proper.
We will use it from this point onward.
That's right. Anything else, Rudy?
No, sir,
Outstanding report, thank you.
thank you.
Selection of meeting dates, times, location, and purpose.
Chair?
Commissioner Cross.
I move the Planning and Zoning Commission hold a regular meeting on October 11th, 2022 at 7 PM in the City Council chambers located at 300 East Superstition Boulevard. In the event there are no items to be brought forward to the commission, these meetings may be canceled, notification of cancellation properly posted, and the commission notified by staff.
Second.
I have a motion, I have a second. Rudy, roll call, please.
Commissioner Cross,
Yes.
Commissioner Gage,
Yes.
Commissioner Barker,
Yes,
Commissioner Begeman,
Yes.
Commissioner Cantwell,
Yes.
Chairman Hanshi.
Yes,
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
I hereby adjourn the Planning and Zoning Commission at 7:43.